Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my channel? Thank you so much. She should thank me for letting her live. Here, those were my mom's exact words, said across the dinner table right in front of my 13-year-old son, Jaden. And if that wasn't enough, my brother Kevin, chewing on his second helping of roast chicken that I had cooked, chimed in without looking up, "Her kid eats because of us." I didn't say a word, not yet. I just looked at Jaden. He nodded slightly and stood up from his chair. He reached into his hoodie pocket, pulled out a white envelope, and walked over to my mom. He placed it on the table in front of her and said, clear as day, "The landlord asked me to give you this, Mom. I already paid the rent for the whole year. You could have heard a pin drop." But let me back up for a second, because that dinner didn't come out of nowhere, and neither did that envelope. For the past 8 months, I've been living in my mother's house, not because I wanted to, but because I had no other choice. My name is Amamira. I'm a 36-year-old single mom, and last year everything in my life fell apart at once. I lost my job after taking too much time off to deal with some medical issues. Then the eviction notice came. I had nowhere else to go. My pride kept me from asking for help at first, but when it became about keeping a roof over Jaden's head, I picked up the phone and called my mother. She agreed to let us move in, no lease, no clear timeline, just you can stay here until you get back on your feet. What I didn't realize is that every meal, every night of sleep, every bite of food would be tallied like a debt I could never repay. From day one, I wasn't treated like family. I was a guest, which in my mother's house meant invisible help. I did the laundry, I cooked dinner most nights, I kept the place spotless, but I was always reminded, sometimes in words, sometimes in glances, that I didn't belong. And Kevin made sure to underline that every chance he got. Kevin, my younger brother, 34, unemployed and living in mom's basement, has a lot of opinions for someone who hasn't worked in years. He'd say things like, "Hey, maybe pitch in for the water bill sometime," or "Jaden's getting a free ride, huh?" Even though he's never once bought groceries. Jaden saw all of it. I tried to shield him, but kids are smart, smarter than we think. He'd see me quietly wipe away tears after dinner or hear the door shut too hard after another comment, but he never said anything. He just hugged me tighter at night. There's something about being a mother that keeps you going, even when every bone in your body is telling you to give up. I worked nights cleaning offices downtown. I came home sore, exhausted, and sometimes in tears, but I kept going for him. And quietly, slowly, I started saving not just a few bucks here and there. I made a plan. I found a small 2-bedroom apartment near Jaden's school. I negotiated with the landlord. I prepaid rent. I kept the papers hidden in my purse, waiting for the right moment because I knew one day my mother would. I want to say out loud that I was a burden, that I should be grateful to eat at her table. And when that day came, I didn't want to defend myself with words. I wanted to show her who I really was. So that night, when she said I should thank her for letting me live here, I didn't flinch. And when Kevin added, "Her kid eats because of us," I just turned to my son. Jaden stood calm, confident, and with all the quiet strength I've ever tried to teach him. He handed her that envelope and said, "The landlord asked me to give you this. Mom already paid the rent." For the whole year, my mother stared at it like it was a bomb. Kevin looked up, mouth full, stunned silent for the first time in his life. And me? I finally exhaled. You don't really notice when your life starts to unravel. It doesn't come crashing down all at once like in the movies. It slips slowly, like a loose thread on your favorite sweater. And by the time you tug on it, it's too late. It's already come undone. I was doing fine, not great, not perfect, but fine. I had a decent job as a receptionist at a dental clinic, a small but clean apartment that Jaden and I called home, and a rhythm to our days: wake up, pack lunches, work, homework, dinner, sleep, repeat. But then I got sick. It started with fatigue, dizzy spells, things I chalked up to stress. Then came the hospital visits, the medical bills, and the unpaid time off. My job didn't wait for me, and within 2 months, I went from Amamira the reliable employee to Amamira the liability. I lost the job, then came the final notice on the door: eviction. I stared at that paper for a long time. I still remember Jaden sitting on the couch, watching cartoons, blissfully unaware that our home was slipping through my fingers. I wanted to protect him from everything, but I couldn't protect him from this. I didn't have a safety net. Jaden's father left when he was 5, and he hasn't so much as sent a birthday card since. No siblings on my side, no close friends I could crash with. So I did the one thing I swore I'd never do. I called my mom Darlene. She's not exactly the warm and fuzzy type. Growing up, she kept the house clean, the fridge full, and the rules tight, but love was earned, not given. The kind of woman who believes in toughening you up for your own good. We were never close. Still, when I explained my situation, she said, "Fine, you can stay here for a little while, just until you figure it out." At first, I was grateful, truly. I thought maybe this could be a fresh start. A few months to catch my breath, get a job, find another place. But it didn't take long for the cracks to show. It started small, a comment here, a dig there. Must be nice sleeping in while other people go to work. Don't forget to clean the bathroom, you're using it too. Don't let Jaden eat all the cereal, Kevin needs breakfast too. Kevin, my younger brother, or as I call him, my mother's golden child. He's 34, doesn't work, spends his days gaming in the basement, and somehow has an opinion on everything, and somehow my mom listens to him like he's Moses coming down the mountain. He can do no wrong even when he does nothing. He didn't like that we were there. I could see it in the way he scowled when Jaden laughed too loud, or how he complained that my cooking tasted different than Mom's, even though he never cooked a meal himself. The worst part wasn't the words, it was how quickly I started believing them. I felt like a burden, like I had failed, like all those years of trying to build something for myself and my son had led me right back to where I started, begging for scraps at a table that never felt like mine. Jaden knew something was off, even though I tried to hide it. He'd ask, "Mom, are we okay?" And I'd smile and say, "We're just getting through a hard time." He didn't need to know how hard. He didn't need to know that I cried in the shower at night or skipped meals so he could have seconds, or that every time my mother looked at me with that mix of pity and superiority, I died a little inside. But I wasn't going to stay down, that's not who I am. I started looking for work, any work, cleaning jobs, overnight shifts, freelance gigs. I took whatever I could find. I'd leave after dinner, work until 2 or 3 a.m., then be back before Jaden woke up for school. I kept track of every dollar, every cent. No eating out, no extras, just a laser focus on one goal: get us out. Some nights I'd sit in the dark calculating how long it would take to save enough for a deposit and first month's rent. It felt impossible, but I never let Jaden see that. He needed to believe I had a plan, and eventually I did. I found a landlord willing to work with me, a small 2-bedroom apartment, a little rundown but clean, safe, mine. I paid him up front for a whole year, and I didn't tell my mom, I didn't tell Kevin, I didn't tell anyone except Jaden because I wanted the truth to come out when it would mean the most. And that moment was coming. If you've ever lived in someone else's house, not as a guest but as a reminder of failure, you know what I mean when I say the walls start to feel tighter each day. The light feels harsher, even your own breath sounds too loud. That's what it was like living in my mother's house. At first, I told myself I was imagining it, that the constant side eyes, the loaded comments, the quiet judgment were just me being sensitive. But they weren't, they were real, and they were constant. Dinner was the worst. That table became a battlefield. Every meal turned into a sermon about gratitude. My mother would stir her pot of stew and drop lines like, "Not everyone would open their home so easily." Kevin would smirk and say, "Yeah, especially not with the cost of groceries these days." I kept my head down, focused on my plate. Sometimes I nodded just to keep the peace, sometimes I'd try to change the subject, but it never worked. They wanted me to feel small, and it was working. There's a special kind of pain that comes from being. I was reminded every day that my presence was a burden, especially when I was already working myself to the bone trying to fix things. What they didn't know was that I was working nights, cleaning offices in the city. I'd leave at 7:30 every evening, right after dinner and dishes, and I'd be gone until 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd sneak in quietly, shower, nap for a couple of hours, then wake up to get Jaden ready for school. Rinse and repeat. No one offered to help. No one asked where I was going at night. They didn't care as long as the house stayed clean, Jaden stayed quiet, and I didn't ask for anything. They were content to ignore me, but Jaden noticed. Always. He started packing my lunches before I left. Sometimes he'd sit up with me while I put on my shoes and ask, "How much longer until we have our own place?" I'd smile and say, "Soon, baby, very soon." The money added up slowly. Office pay isn't much, but I took extra shifts, accepted last-minute calls, and never spent a dime on anything unnecessary. I stopped getting my hair done, stopped buying coffee, and lived off peanut butter sandwiches and pride. Eventually, I saved enough, a full year of rent paid up front. The landlord even gave me a small discount for the lump sum. I remember holding the receipt in my hands and feeling like I could finally breathe again. But I didn't tell them. Not yet. Because something in me needed them to keep talking. I needed them to keep underestimating me, keep saying I was lucky to be under their roof, keep acting like I couldn't survive without them. Because I knew the moment would come when they'd say too much, just loud enough for Jaden to hear, and that would be it. That moment came quicker than I expected. A few days after I signed the lease, my mom came into the kitchen while I was cooking and said, "Just a reminder, we're running low on paper towels, and since you're eating here, maybe contribute for once." Kevin, without missing a beat, added from the living room, "Or maybe pay rent like the rest of us." I bit my tongue so hard I could taste blood. The rest of us? He didn't pay a dime to live there. Jaden sat at the table staring at his homework. His pencil froze mid-sentence. He looked up at me and I looked away. That night, I pulled him aside and handed him the envelope. Inside was the rent confirmation and a letter from the landlord stating the lease was in my name. "When Grandma or Uncle says something again, I want you to give this to her, but only when you're ready." He looked at me like I just handed him a sword. He nodded, solemn, like he understood what it meant. Because Jaden, my sweet boy, had watched his mom be humiliated for months, and now he held the truth in his hands. I knew what was coming. I didn't know when, but I was ready. Ready for the moment when I wouldn't have to say a word to prove them wrong. For months, I'd swallowed every insult, every backhanded comment, every smug look Kevin threw my way like I owed him something for breathing. Under my mother's roof, I told myself I was doing it for Jaden. As long as he was safe, as long as we had a roof, even a bitter one, I could take it. But it wasn't just about me anymore. I saw it in Jaden's eyes that night in the kitchen when my mom asked for money for paper towels. He didn't look surprised. He looked used to it, like this was normal, like he expected people to treat his mom like she didn't belong. That look stayed with me because, more than anything, I didn't want him growing up thinking this was how life worked, that love came with conditions, that family only supported you if it made them feel superior. That was the night I realized I wasn't protecting him by staying silent. I was teaching him the wrong lesson. So I made a decision. I was done being small. I didn't need their validation, their approval, or their shelter anymore. I had already paid the rent for an entire year on our new place. My name was on the lease. Jaden would finally have a home that didn't hang shame over his head like a chandelier. But I didn't want to leave quietly because they had made a spectacle of my struggle. Every meal was a performance where they reminded me of what I supposedly owed them. I wanted to show them that everything they believed about me, every smug assumption, every dismissive comment was wrong. But I wouldn't do it by yelling. I wanted it to be clean. I wanted it to be clear. I wanted it to come from the one voice in the room they hadn't been able to break, Jaden's. So I sat him down, just the two of us, and handed him a plain white envelope. Inside was a printed copy of the lease agreement, the receipt of the full year payment, and a handwritten letter from our landlord confirming that the apartment was ours and ours alone. Jaden looked at it, then looked at me. "Is this real?" he asked. "It's real," I said. "We're moving into our own place next week, but I want you to hold on to this for me." He nodded, clutching the envelope gently like it was made of glass. "What do I do with it?" he asked. I leaned in. "You give it to Grandma the next time she says something about us living here, when she says something that isn't true." He blinked, unsure. "Won't she get mad?" "She might," I said, "but you won't be saying anything mean. You're just telling the truth, and the truth is nothing to be afraid of." He nodded again, this time with more certainty. "I can do that." I could feel a shift between us in that moment. Jaden wasn't just a kid anymore. He had been watching me fight quietly for months, and now he was part of that fight, not with anger or violence, but with courage and clarity. For the next few days, I went about a routine like nothing had changed. I cooked dinner, did the dishes, kept the peace. My mom kept being passive-aggressive, Kevin kept being smug, and I kept quiet. But inside, I was no longer afraid. I was waiting for the moment I knew would come because people like them always talk too much. They couldn't help themselves. Just a matter of time before one of them would say something loud enough, cruel enough, and shameless enough to open the door wide. And when that happened, Jaden would walk through it. He wasn't just going to defend me. He was going to end the lie they had built around us. It happened on a Sunday evening, chicken night. My mom had this habit of making a big dinner every Sunday like it was some holy ritual. Same meal, same seating arrangement, same routine. It was meant to feel like family, but it never did, not with all the tension sitting at the table like an extra guest. I had roasted the chicken myself that night. I did most Sundays. My mother claimed her back hurt too much, but she never missed a chance to remind everyone how she was still feeding two more mouths. Kevin sat at the table early, fork in hand, before the food even hit the plate, like he was doing us a favor by just showing up. Jaden sat quietly beside me, his hoodie zipped all the way up. I knew he had the envelope tucked inside it. I hadn't reminded him. I didn't need to. We were both just waiting. The dinner started off like all the others, tense but quiet. Kevin complained about the Wi-Fi. My mom sighed heavily when she passed me the salad bowl like I'd asked for too much. I tried to focus on my plate, but I could feel it building. The energy in the room was heavy, like a thunderstorm was pressing down on all of us. Then it happened. My mom set down her glass of water, looked straight at me, and said, "You know, Amamira, most daughters would be thankful just to be allowed to live here. Some people would be out on the street." I didn't respond, I didn't flinch. I just cut into my chicken and waited. Kevin let out a chuckle and added, "Yeah, I mean, your kid eats because of us. Let's not forget that." And that was it. Jaden slowly stood up. His chair made a soft scraping sound on the tile that somehow cut through the room like a scream. He reached into his hoodie, pulled out the white envelope, and walked around the table to my mother. He placed it gently on the table in front of her and said in a calm, clear voice that I'll never forget, "The landlord said to give you this. Mom already paid the rent for the whole year." My mother blinked. Kevin stared like someone had slapped him. Jaden turned and sat back down, folded his hands in his lap, and kept eating like nothing had happened. I didn't say a word, I didn't need to. My mother opened the envelope slowly like she wasn't sure it was real. Her eyes scanned the documents. First the lease, then the receipt, then the letter from the landlord addressed to me. Her mouth opened slightly, but nothing came out. She looked at me, and I held her gaze, calm, steady, not smug, not angry, just done. Kevin finally found his voice. "Wait, what is this? You paid rent somewhere." I looked at him and said, "Yes. I did for a whole year." My mother whispered, "Yes," I said, "for a whole year." The silence that followed was the deepest we'd ever had in that house. No one moved, no one breathed, because for the first time they couldn't say anything. The facts were right there on the table, all the assumptions they made about me, all the things they whispered about behind my back, all the superiority they flaunted. It was all a lie, and now it had a timestamp, a signature, and a receipt. Jaden looked at me then, not for approval but for reassurance. I gave him the smallest nod. He smiled just a little. I've never been more proud of anyone in my life. My mom eventually stood up and took her plate to the kitchen without saying another word. Kevin muttered something under his breath and left the table. Jaden and I finished our dinner in peace. No one raised their voice, no one argued. The truth didn't need volume. That was the moment everything changed, because I didn't just prove I could take care of myself, I proved I'd never needed their permission to exist. And Jaden, he saw what strength really looked like, not in yelling, not in fighting, but in standing tall when no one expects you to. We left the next morning. No drama, no shouting, no slamming doors, just quiet packing and steady hands. Jaden helped fold clothes, stack boxes, and carry bags to the car. He didn't say much, he didn't have to. The night before had said everything that needed to be said. His silence felt powerful, like he finally understood what kind of woman I was and what kind of man he was becoming. My mother didn't come out of her room while we packed. She didn't say goodbye. I half expected her to make some last-minute remark, some passive-aggressive warning, or a half-hearted offer to help us carry things, but nothing came. Just the distant creak of the hallway floorboards and the sound of the TV humming behind her door. Kevin stayed in the basement, didn't even look up when we walked past with the last suitcase, and honestly, I was fine with that. Because for the first time in a long time, I felt free, not just from that house but from the weight of their judgment, the need to explain myself, the pressure to shrink so they could feel tall. We drove in silence for the first few miles. Jaden looked out the window, then turned to me. "You okay, Mom?" I smiled, not the fake one I wore in my mother's kitchen, a real one, tired but proud. "Yeah," I said, "I really am." The apartment wasn't fancy. The walls had scuff marks, the floors creaked, and the front door stuck when you didn't pull hard enough. But it was ours. It smelled like new paint and possibility. We stood in the living room surrounded by boxes, and for the first time in months I felt like I could breathe. Jaden dropped his bag, walked to the window, and said, "We finally did it." "Yeah, we did," I whispered, blinking back tears. That night, we ate dinner on the floor, just pizza and paper plates, sitting cross-legged among unopened boxes. Jaden leaned back against a stack of towels and said, "This feels like home already." And it did. It felt like peace. It felt like ownership, not of a space but of my life. The thing is, I used to think that strength meant keeping quiet, enduring, surviving, letting people talk down to you while you kept your head low and your mouth shut. But that's not strength, that's fear in disguise. Real strength is knowing your worth even when no one around you sees it. Real strength is walking away without looking back. I thought I was staying quiet to protect Jaden, but what I learned is that kids don't just learn from what you say, they learn from what you tolerate. He watched me take every jab, every backhanded comment, every false step my mother and brother tried to hang over us like a leash. But he also watched me rise. He saw me go to work every night without complaint. He saw me stretch every dollar, skip every luxury, plan every move. And when the time came, he stood up for me, not because I told him to, but because he saw what real courage looks like. He learned that being kind doesn't mean being weak, and I learned that my silence wasn't protecting him, it was teaching him to stay small. Never again. Leaving that house didn't just free us physically, it reset something inside both of us. The shame I'd carried started to fall away, replaced by pride. And Jaden, he held himself taller, laughed louder, moved through the world like a kid who knew he was safe. Weeks passed, then months. I picked up more steady hours. We got furniture piece by piece. I even bought a little plant that sits on the windowsill and reminds me how things can bloom with a little care, even after being rooted in rocky soil. I haven't spoken to my mother since we moved out, not because I'm angry, but because I'm done explaining my worth to people who choose not to see it. Some people say you should forgive and forget. I think forgiveness is fine, but sometimes you have to walk away to find peace, and I finally found mine. So if you're watching this and you're feeling stuck, ashamed, or small, please hear me. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to leave what hurts, and you don't owe anyone your silence just to keep the peace. Stand up, even if your voice shakes, even if you have to hand the truth to someone else to say it for you. Because the truth, when spoken clearly and calmly, is louder than any lie they ever told about you. If this story spoke to you even a little, if you've ever been made to feel small or invisible or like you had to apologize for just surviving, I hope you know now you're not alone. There is strength in staying kind, there is power in getting back up. And sometimes the quietest voice in the room is the one that finally changes everything. If you felt something watching this, please like this video. It really helps more people find it. Share it with someone who might need a little reminder of their own strength. Comment below, tell me your story, or just say hi. I read every single one. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more real stories, real strength, and a little hope when you need it most. Thank you for being here. Truly, we'll see you in the next.